Over the last week and more, we've been examining the male-dominated culture in tech, and my next guest is well aware of the problems detailed in my new book, Brotopia, Breaking Up the Boys Club of Silicon Valley. In fact, he's made it his mission to hire as many women as men. At his latest company, Chorus, I'd like to welcome former Twitter CEO and Chorus co-founder Dick Costolo. Great to have you back on the show.
Great to be here. I was hoping you were going to call me Abigail, like you referred to the last woman who wasn't named Abigail.
How about I call you Abigail?
All right,
take
perfect.
It from
Just
there.
keep it going.
All right. So I want to
People
start.
who are just tuning in are like, what?
What are you talking about? I want to start on a positive note here because when you left Twitter and you started Chorus, you approached hiring differently than most CEOs, and you said, I'm not going to hire another man until I hire a woman, and vice versa. And you continued that sort of one for one as you grew. Why did you do that?
Well, I generally tried to keep it 50% men, 50% women at all points and across engineering and the company, because I felt like when you fall behind, and of course, as is common knowledge based on all the gender and diversity studies that come out from all of these companies, Twitter and Pinterest and Facebook, et cetera, once you get behind on things like gender diversity in your engineering team, it just becomes frankly impossible to catch up. You have to start, you've got women engineers who are interviewing at the company. They want to meet other women engineers. There are only so many women engineers. The women engineers end up spending all their time interviewing other engineers. Then they're not writing production code, and promotions come around and they're like, how come you didn't write production code? And that's sort of one trivial example of how hard it is, of many of how hard it is to catch up when you fall behind. And I just decided that the way to deal with that is to start off by not falling behind. Not say, well, give yourself the excuse in the early days of, well, we just have to get the right 7 people in here on day one, and if there's 7 men, we'll catch up later. You don't catch up. So I decided if it was 50-50 early on, and always that way on the leadership team and in engineering, et cetera, it would be easier to stay that way, and I think that's proven to be true.
So why don't more CEOs and founders think like you?
I think they just don't think about it. Listen, if you're a first-time founder, you're trying to raise money, you're trying to find product market fit, you're waking up every morning, now I'm responsible for people I've never been responsible for before, and you want to squeeze your head together and cry about all the things you're worried about. And so they don't think about it. Or they feel like that's something I can deal with later. I think there's probably a general sense of, well, there's only 30 people in the company now, 40 people, 50 people. Yeah, that's going to be an issue because we're out of whack here right now, but we'll go deal with that later. And the reality is, once you fall way behind, it's almost impossible to catch up. Everything in the organization starts to work to favor the existing imbalance and to keep it going. Not for any nefarious reason, just because that's the way everything in the company is. And so, for example, if you've got 90% men in engineering and 10% women, the way you bring people into the company in engineering is referrals. Well, the junior engineer guys are hanging out with other junior engineer guys, and they know mostly guys, and so that's who gets referred in. So that's what I mean by this sort of, once you fall behind, that imbalance starts to just sort of reinforce itself.
Is there anything in particular, and I know Twitter is not unique in this, as we know, most companies are male dominated, but is there anything in particular that you learned at Twitter where you saw things go the wrong way that could have been better if there had been more equal men and women?
I would frame it differently in that I always felt that that when I had a more diverse group of perspectives on a decision that needed to be made. Look, when you're a leader or a manager, 80% of what you're doing is listening and gathering feedback in order to make the best decisions. And if you've got the broadest possible set of perspectives to make a decision, that's going to be better than having a very, very narrow set of perspectives.
In fact, you can move more quickly, right? Because you don't have to go ask people on the street what they think of your product.
Think about it, if you've got a leadership team sitting around the table that's 10 guys and your user base is 50% men and 50% women, you're going to have a serious lack of what half of your user base might be thinking about why or how they use the product in a certain way. And one of the benefits of Chorus is we had a team, small though it may be, that matches basically the user base. And so I always thought that was something you should work toward, to have more of those kinds of less narrow socioeconomic, demographic, gender-based, et cetera, perspectives into any decision that was being made.
Now, in the book, I interview Evan Williams, co-founder of Twitter, and he told me that he thinks if there had been more women on the founding team of Twitter, there in the very, very earliest days, that maybe online harassment and trolling wouldn't be such a problem, because they weren't thinking about it. They were thinking about wonderful things that could be done with the product, not how it could be used to harass people. If there were more women at the creation of these products, at the creation of the internet even, do you think that the products would be different?
Well, there are two different things there. I'm not sure that I necessarily agree that if there were more women on the founding team of Twitter, some of the issues that the platform has wouldn't exist. It's really hard to anticipate the way these products are going to evolve, the way they're going to be used. There are always lots and lots and lots of unintended consequences. Even now, there will be unintended consequences of the way they're used a couple years from now when we already know so much about them. So I'm not so sure I'm of the same opinion on that point. There's no question that in the founding of any product or any organization or any business that to the extent there are a lot more women around the table at the very beginning, you're going to end up with a different set of decisions from day one than you would otherwise, and I think that's a good thing.